Clear your throat. Lubricate. Read that bitch.
Now we're good. All right, which corporation are we going to be reading for filth today? Brandy Melville. $26 for a crop top. At that rate, I should be getting the bottom half with it. On the bright side, you do seem like a very sustainable website, seeing as you recycle all of your designs. And of course, the biggest sin of all of your clothes are one size fit all. You liars. This might just be personal preference, but I don't really see the appeal of Brandy Melville. Their clothes are kind of basic. There's nothing here you couldn't get at H&M or Forever 21 or Abercrombie for at least half the price. And for such expensive clothes, they seem to be using pretty cheap material. What is viscose? It sounds like viscous, which is the grossest of the adjectives. So I can't help but wonder if maybe some of the appeal subconsciously may come from the fact that they are one size fits all, and there is this allure of exclusivity. If you can fit into one of our crop tops, then you too can be a part of the Brandy Melville family. And as flimsy as this gimmick is, it seems to be working. There is a troublingly large amount of YouTube videos of girls losing weight so they can fit into Brandy Melville. And I'm not here to judge your diet or exercise lifestyle, because everyone has a right to live their life however they want. But losing weight just so you can fit into a polyester shift dress doesn't feel worth it to me. And like I said in my fat representation video, a lot of the insecurity that plus size people face is due in part to the fact that there are so few clothing options. When someone makes an outfit that says one size fits all, if you are not part of that all, the implication is that you are some sort of freak of nature who only deserves to wear trash bags. So sometimes as a plus size person, you gotta take matters into your own hands. And to prove just how basic this Brandy Melville is, today I will be doing the equivalent of illegally downloading some of their most famous clothes. In other words, making my own versions of it. So, my victim has been roasted, now to steal from them. But first I need to pee, that was too much water.
The first piece I'm going to be tackling is the Amara top. This actually comes up quite a bit on the site in an array of colors and patterns. Some of the times it has short sleeves, but other times it has long sleeves or just straps. Upon first glance, it just looks like a typical wrap shirt, but actually it's a big fat liar. The fabric for this project will be from a black jersey knit pillowcase that I just cut open and so daintily smoothed out on my sewing room floor. I'm displaying with my feet that the fabric should ideally have four-way stretch to it. And I brought out this crop top that fits me because the store I bought it from doesn't hate fat people. And using my trusty piece of tailor chalk, I'm going to outline all around the shirt to get a pattern piece for the back half of the top. Oof, I recorded that line in the morning and I just realized that that was probably the first thing I said today, which is why it sounded like I gargled tiny frogs. I made sure to lift the sleeve parts of the shirt so I could get the outline of the sleeve holes. And then I made another outline of the front part of the shirt, but we're not going to cut this out. Actually, we're going to draw on a rough approximation of what the wrap layers are going to look like along with the waistband. And make sure to leave yourself room for all the pattern pieces to have ½ inch of seam allowance to cut out. I'm not actually going to cut out these pieces since they overlap, but I'm just going to get a rough approximation of how big I should make each piece so I can draw it out and cut it on a different part of the fabric.
I just realized that the bottom of this pillowcase has like an already finished hem, and I just had the thought, why don't I just cut out the pattern where the bottom of the shirt's gonna go where the seam is. So I flipped the pillowcase over and I'm gonna draw on all the pattern pieces again.
I actually made this work by cutting out pattern pieces of the things that I'd drawn previously. And since I was working on a new side to fit all the pieces on, I had enough room to make the sleeves. I got this shape by tracing the sleeves on my crop top, but making these a little bit shorter. And once I have all my pieces cut out with a ½ inch seam allowance on all the sides, I'm going to arrange the front pieces together to make it look like the shirt. And now on to my least favorite part, which is hemming fabric. And you know what's worse than hemming fabric? Hemming stretchy fabric. So many things can possibly go wrong at this stage. If I stretch it too much on the sewing machine, then it'll start to ruffle and look really unflattering. So I'm actually putting in the effort to pin everything down as flatly and meticulously as I can, and then hesitating for way too long before actually sewing it. That actually went not as bad as I thought it would. Jesus Christ, doing this much voiceover makes me so hyper aware of the amount of words that I frequently repeat when I'm talking. In my first ever video, the only thing I can focus on is the fact that I say now like 50 different times. And don't even get me started on how many times I say like. I'm like an 80s Valley girl. Wait, I'm supposed to be narrating a tutorial. Okay, so I sewed on the front waistband and connected it to the two, what is those things called? Boob flaps. I connected it to the boob flaps. And then after taking way too much time making sure the front and the back parts are completely even, I'm going to sew along the sides. And then I sewed along the two sides of the sleeves and then flipped those over to make that signature cloth tube. Oh my god, are all sleeves just cloth tubes? That just sounds wrong. I mean, even the girl I drew on my desk is judging me. On to another scary part, sewing the sleeves onto the top. You thought sewing stretchy fabric was bad, well try sewing stretchy fabric in a circle. I always follow the Annika Victoria method of sewing sleeves by only placing 4 pins along the sides and then stretching the fabric to meet each one. And then once I get Helen's approval, we can start sewing. While sewing this, you're gonna feel like you're screwing it up the entire time, but you just gotta stick to the method and everything will turn out just fine. Pretend your guardian angel Annika Victoria is looking after the sewing project, saying, "Everything will be just fine." I can't do an Australian accent. I was like an Irish person with a sponge in their mouth. That was a mistake.
This top requires a considerable amount of adjustment if you have big boobs. I was working with limited fabric, so I didn't get to account for boob space quite as much. I could just leave it like this, but the waistband kind of ends in an awkward spot, so it just kind of makes my boobs look like the head of a Muppet. But on the other hand, if I push them all the way up, it gives less of a trendy girl on Instagram and more of a hello, welcome to Hooters. I mean, this look is valid. Some girls rock this look, but as someone who's a little self-conscious of her girls, I like to keep things minimal. Despite the fact that these are the best thing that puberty's given me, you don't attract cute high school boys with these, you attract creepy old men at the Chinatown metro stations. Now I do kind of understand why bigger girls were dress-coded more than skinnier girls. And that's because we got more to show. I mean, we could just stop the objectification of women, especially younger girls who develop faster than others, but one conflict at a time. The US is very slow.
For a little bit more modesty, I hand sewed the opening a little bit more shut. It came out pretty wonky since I'm not the best at hand sewing, but I'm fine with that. I was actually doing this during one of my online classes whilst my camera was on, and I just realized that that probably looked very weird to the other students. I mean, it's not the weirdest thing. One time I heard someone say, "It smells like weed in here," during one of the classes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they didn't know their mic was on. To complement my very form-fitting black top, I'm going to be making the nice and flowy Kenzo skirt. This flirty little number is adjustable, which makes me think this could have easily been made in bigger sizes. Anyway, the material I'm using is an old bed sheet that NYU made me buy, and I'm going to be cutting out of this a long trapezoid shape, which is about the size of my waist plus 5 or 10 inches, and half the size of what you want the desired skirt length to be. I'm taking advantage of pre-existing hems again for the bottom half of the skirt, which will be a big, long rectangle about 12 inches plus seam allowance. And for maximum poofiness, make sure to get this to at least twice as long as your hip measurement. I find it's better to cut too much rather than not enough. You can always cut it down later, but I'm dramatic, so I want that maximum poof. Once the pieces are all cut, I'm going to take out my Altoids that I only feed to my enemies and pin the two sides of my trapezoids together in order to sew them in place. Once that's all nice and perfect, you're going to flip over the top half in order to make the waistband. And then you're going to pin that in place about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. You want to make sure you have enough space in order to weave through the adjustable cord at the end. Compared to sewing the stretchy fabric, sewing this is like sewing butter. It's so easy, I turn into a mother from New Jersey. Man, I gotta quit it with the accents or else I'm gonna lose my entire audience. Then I went ahead and gathered the bottom panel of the skirt using the same method I used for my t-shirt dress. And I made sure it was pleated enough to fit along the perimeter of the top trapezoid piece before attaching the two right sides together and sewing it while singing whatever musical I have in my head at the moment.
I could be falling in love with someone. That went a lot better than I thought it would.
I'm of course referring to the skirt, not my singing. Broadway, please come back. My mediocre singing voice is not a sustainable alternative. I'm making a cord to loop through the waistband by folding over a small rectangle of long fabric, enough to tie around my waist with some excess hanging out, and then I'm going to stick a safety pin through it very precariously. Oh my god, I'm gonna poke my finger! Okay, it's fine. And then I'm gonna stick the safety pin in one of two holes that I've cut in the front of the skirt, and I'm going to guide it all the way through that little tubing at the top until it comes out the other hole, and after which I'm going to tie the two ends together to make a cute little bow. And that's how you make an adjustable waistband. It's not that hard, Brandy Melville. If one mediocre sewer can do it, then clearly a multi-million-dollar company can too. Okay guys, I've held you in suspense for long enough. Here is the final plus-size Brandy Melville look.
One of my gay friends gave this to me for my birthday, and when he presented it, he was like, "To my favorite ally," and I was just like, yes, ally, just an ally,